This is Charter Local Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance. We are coming to you from Washington, D.C. We are joined by John Shimkus. He is a member of the United States Congress representing the great state of Illinois. But, sir, I want to speak with you about the world, and specifically on Europe. There's been a lot of attention focused on the Middle East, an important issue, no doubt. But I want to focus on what's happening in Eastern Europe, what's happening in the Ukraine, the Crimea, and how it's impacting the former Soviet states. Talk to us about Lithuania, for example, where you recently visited.
Well, what we have to remember is that Lithuania just celebrated its 25th anniversary of reestablishment of freedom. So they've been free, independent of the Soviet Union, or now Russia, for 25 years. In that time, they first became members. Many of these Eastern European countries are now members of NATO, and many are members of the UN. So they really are part of the European community. Depending upon where in the past 25 years, Russia has really not been pleased with this integration into the West. And we see the emergence of that now with, they hold two provinces in the country of Georgia. People are watching what's happening in Crimea and then the eastern part of Ukraine.
And let's talk about the Crimea, because in some ways it's mind-blowing what happened. And I'm not taking a position, but literally we're going to read about this in the history books, that one day Russia marched on in and took the Crimea. I mean, I understand you look at a map, it kind of looks like it could be part of Russia, but no, I mean, that's not how this works.
Well, but as people follow this stuff, the Istanbul Accords was an agreement by the major powers, and in which Ukraine gave up their nuclear weapons. And both countries, Russia, the United States, agreed to the territorial sovereignty of the country of Ukraine. If they blew right by that.
Now, if I were an elected official in Lithuania, in Latvia, and Estonia, the Baltics, you visited Lithuania, I'd be nervous. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's very fair. Because historically, we've had air policing in an air base called Chalet in Lithuania, but now we have what we call permanent rotational troops, which is a battalion of U.S. Army cavalry unit that's accompanying each country. Now that's great, but it's not nearly. It's more for show, not for go, in case there was an invasion. But the Baltics really want to ensure that our NATO treaty, Article 5, is an attack on one is an attack on all. That's really the sacred pillar of the NATO alliance.
Ukraine, are they part of NATO?
They are not.
Okay, so that's why the Crimea situation.
That's why the NATO didn't intervene militarily. Georgia is not part of NATO. That's why we didn't intervene militarily. But the Baltics are. So Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are all part of NATO, and even though they should feel comfortable, and even the administration, who I disagree with most of the time, has tried to reassure them that they're being part of NATO, they should be safe and secure. But that's hard to say when you're a small country and you got Russia across the border.
So here's the question then. Since Russia acted aggressively as it relates to Crimea, is it time for the United States and our friends in Europe to talk to what's left of the Ukraine and say, come join NATO?
Well, that's the debate. You just had the G7 meetings. The question is, there's economic sanctions on Russia right now. It is having some impact, but you have in essence, a dictator, and Vladimir Putin, who is really getting emboldened by this show of strength that the Russian Empire is not wilted away, and that he's still a strong leader. So he's, even in adverse times, he's being viewed very positively by the Russian citizens.
What about our friends in Poland? Now, Poland obviously was not part of the Soviet Union, but was part of the sphere of influence of the Soviet Union. Should our friends in Poland be concerned legitimately?
Oh, they're very concerned.
They are.
I mean, you can talk to any really Eastern European, however you want to define Eastern European country, which Poland would fall into that category. They're very concerned. And if I was king for the day, or if I was the president, I would be moving NATO forces as far east as possible. I'm not.
Right.
So if I was the president, I'd be moving U.S. troops as far east as possible. And I got a leg to stand on in that debate because I was on the West German border. So I served there 3 years against the Soviet Union, and we protected Western Germany from an emerging Soviet threat. That moving forward helped keep the peace, helped to stabilize Western Europe, and now allowed the East to become...
What about that little sliver? Is it called Kaliningrad?
Yeah, that's between Poland and Lithuania. It's an enclave.
It's Russian, correct?
It is Russian.
It seems like a thorn in the side of a lot of us. I mean, why is it there? Because it's not contiguous with Russia. Does it cause problems strategically, militarily, that they have this sliver?
Well, it's kind of like the naval bases in Crimea, because that's where the naval fleet is. They've got chemical weapons. We think they have nuclear weapons. It's no one's laying claim to it, but it is an enclave that Poland and Lithuania have to deal with.
Let's talk about the Middle East, because obviously that continues to be top of mind for Americans in the world. These are times that are baffling. What is ISIS? What is ISIL? It's hard to even describe. But what we do know is they are ravaging Syria, they are ravaging Iraq, they are destroying antiquities, and they are destabilizing the region. The president has recently said, we don't have a clear strategy. I mean, maybe kudos for being honest, but it's a little daunting.
Right. You look at any place in the world, whether it's the Middle East, or you look at Eastern Europe, or you look at now what's going on in the South China Sea, or you look at Iran negotiations. I think the world yearns for leadership. And usually the only country that can really lead the world in these big issues of our time is the United States. And we have a lack of leadership as a chief executive, and he's allowing these risks and these threats to continue to grow without a clear strategy.
So what should we do?
Well, I actually support, when he talked about airstrikes, I was not one who said no. I was one that said yes. But I think we're still war weary, and I think Americans want to see the Arab world obviously address the problems in their backyard. So any way we can help them. I know the Egyptians are trying to formalize an Arab military contingent.
But they're shaky themselves, the Egyptians. I mean, their government, I'm not even sure, can you call it a government?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think what we've learned through this process is that we can't expect everyone to have Jeffersonian democracy now.
And let me ask you about that, because I'm wondering if we in America set ourselves up for disappointment, because we want to, like you say, export the wonder of democracy. Yeah. It's not part of the Middle East ethos.
Yeah, I think hindsight's always 20/20, and I think those of us who served during that time, and served years after, and serve now, are questioning some of the positions and stances we took, because you've got to let culture and individual identity. But remember, part of the Middle East problem is because of the lines drawn after World War I by Europeans, and splitting tribes and doing all that stuff.
And that begs the question, we know Yugoslavia was divided up. I mean, should it be we need to divide up Iraq and Syria? And whoever we is, I don't know, but do we need to look at that?
Well, I think this warfare is an attempt to divide it up. So we're living in dangerous times, and hence, we'll have the DOD bill on the floor. We did a DOD authorization bill. And we added money to defense because we don't live in a safer world right now. We live in a more dangerous time.
He is John Shimkus. He is a member of the United States Congress representing the great state of Illinois. My name is Brad Pomerance, coming to you from Washington, D.C. It's Charter Local Edition.